Well, today I'm talking to Myerscough College, Alison Robinson and Wes Johnson, and we're going to talk about a changing of the guard there. Alison, firstly, nice to see you again, but I think it's probably one of the last things we're going to do together, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But, I'm sad to say that. It's been fabulous working with you for the last few years. Yeah,
we've enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Yeah, I'm finally retiring from Myerscough after 9.5 years here and 5.5 years as principal.
Well, we'll go into a little bit about what you've achieved in that time. But Wes, welcome. First time we've spoken. New into the role. When do you actually start?
Yes, great to meet you, Martin. Yeah, I take up the role from 1st of September, so coming up quite quickly. Yeah.
Okay, and where are you currently?
I'm currently Principal Chief Executive at Myerscough College, which is literally 20 minutes up the road from Myerscough. And I'm also chair of an organisation called the Lancashire Colleges, which brings together all 12 of Lancashire's colleges. And it's been a pleasure to work really closely with Alison as part of that role.
Okay, well, coming back to you then, Alison. What's the high points for you over the last few years then?
I've got to say, working with you, Martin, haven't I?
Oh, yeah. Right. I'll definitely leave that in.
No, but I can honestly say working with the sports turf industry has been fabulous, absolutely fabulous. You know, for me, getting to know, so many people in the industry, at the top football clubs, rugby clubs, golf courses, has been absolutely amazing. The support and encouragement, from the employers, working with the apprentices and the staff has been absolutely fabulous.
What's your high point?
What has been my high point? Do you mean for me, or do you mean for Myerscough particularly?
Yes, both.
A high point. It's always been, it's been my dream. I suppose it's been my dream job. Being principal of Myerscough. I grew up on a kind of farm about 7 miles from the college. I've lived in the next village to Myerscough, 2 miles away from Myerscough for 23 years before I started working here. So it literally has been my dream job to kind of come here. I decided at the age of 14 I wanted to be a lecturer in a further education college. So being sort of chief exec and principal of Myerscough has really been the pinnacle of my career, and I've loved working with such amazing staff. So that's been the best bit about it, is just being part of a fabulous college and working with amazing staff.
And what do you think Myerscough's achieved then in your tenure?
I think we've really put ourselves out there on the map, much more so in terms of our land-based curriculum the last few years. I think sports turf provision certainly has grown. Our sports turf and greenkeeping provision has grown. We are definitely the biggest land-based sort of training provider as a whole for the land-based sector across the UK. But in terms of sports turf, I believe we're the biggest in Europe. We've got that, not just national brand and reputation, but international brand and reputation. So that's something I'm really proud of. And I think for me, we've also put agriculture back on the map as a very strong agricultural college. We've had massive investment in our farms with new technology and precision farming the last few years. And again, something I've been really proud of. I lobbied about 4 or 5 years ago for agriculture to be recognised in Lancashire as a key sector, key driver for the Lancashire economy. And after several years of lobbying, that was accepted, and it led to it being included in its strategy and vision papers with investment in the college. So that's really driven that area forward. So something I'm proud of.
Well, I first met you at the Turf Business Summit. I think, was it back in Madrid or was it Portugal?
No, it's Madrid, the very first one, yeah.
And I always remember thinking the first time you got up and spoke, well, there's a woman on a mission. And you certainly came in and I wouldn't say necessarily you banged a few heads together, but you got a few people in a room that probably needed to be driven a little bit. And I think from my point of view, that always impressed me. So moving on to you, Wes, that's quite an act to follow. A driven individual, certainly. Let's go back to your experience with your previous roles. How much has that had to do with sports turf or land-based?
Yeah, you see, I think it's a similar theme to Alison, actually. There's a real personal connection here, Martin. So my sort of heritage is from a farming family in Nottinghamshire. My subject In my sort of early years was very much around countryside management, agriculture, forestry. That was sort of my first teaching role at a specialist land-based college called Myerscough College near Nottingham. And gradually I've moved north from that point and fluctuated between general further education colleges and specialist land-based colleges. And I've lived in the area in North Lancashire for the last 19 years. So my passion, both sort of personal and professional, is land management in the broadest sense, Martin. So I live on a little hill farm on the Forest of Bowland, 1,000 feet up, and that's very much a big part of my sort of well-being strategy in terms of escaping the trials and tribulations of being a principal and chief exec in the college sector. And that's hugely important to me in terms of those land-based careers in the very, very broadest sense, Martin. And it's a big part of my family heritage. My wife was a student at Myerscough, and both of my sons have actually been students at Myerscough, specialising in sports turf as an apprentice. So there's a strong family connection there, Martin, as well.
So you're obviously aware of the college. It's an ambition. Do you have any ideas of what you might like to achieve already? I mean, you've got an agenda, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So very much sort of building on the fantastic work that Alison's done. But the two guiding principles for me, Martin, are: one is everything we do should be employer-led. So in terms of the world we're in at the moment, I'm one of my roles as outside of the college at the moment, I'm a director of the Chamber of Commerce locally. So I meet with employers from all sectors on a regular basis. But I'm a really big believer that employers should be in the lead role in shaping the curriculum of colleges, and particularly land-based colleges at this point in time. So for example, those young people and adults that progress through those sports turf qualifications emerge with the knowledge, skills and behaviours that the industry needs now and in the future, rather than when the curriculum was written a number of years ago. So employer-led is an absolutely guiding principle that I've employed in every role that I've had across colleges. But the key role for me also is what we want is opportunities for all members of our community to be economically active. So therefore our curriculum also has to have multiple stepping on and stepping off points, just to make sure that there aren't those barriers in place for those people that could be fantastic in an industry like sports turf, but don't necessarily feel they've got the prerequisites. Maybe they've not had the best academic experience in the past, or maybe they're highly skilled in another area and want to reskill and retrain into sports turf. So the two guiding principles for me, Martin, are everything should be employer-led, but as inclusive as it possibly can be, because we want that talent within the industry and we want to remove as many barriers as we can to entry, regardless of a person's starting point.
Have you had any conversations with employers yet, or is it too soon for you to start?
Yeah, I sort of liaise with land-based employers on a regular basis. And as I've mentioned, I sort of use my own sort of personal example, really, Marty. My son's just completed an apprenticeship in sport turf at one of our local golf clubs. It's been a fantastic opportunity for him, joining when he was 16, as I say, being a student of Myerscough throughout that process. So I've really seen, as a parental point of view, what a great choice that's been for him as well. But also, having a close sort of working relationship with his employer as well, just seeing actually that absolute buy-in from employers. And I've also had the privilege of during my sort of days at Myerscough over this last few months of meeting some key influencers within that sports turf sector and really understanding the cutting edge. And I would sort of say, I've got a personal vested interest here, Martin, because as a season ticket holder at Nottingham Forest, worshipping at the world famous City Ground is a big part of my own well-being. So in terms of that patch of sports turf in West Bridgeford in Nottingham, I know how important that is, if you see what I mean, both from a professional point of view in terms of the quality of Premier League football we're now seeing at the City Ground, but also the industry behind it, Martin, and again those high expectations, and of course the technology that now underpins that. Obviously science is hugely important, but I think we hear a lot about AI and we hear a lot about technology, and I think again it's supporting as a college our businesses to really embrace that latest technology. And as Alison said, that's not limited to a region, it's not limited to a country, that's potentially helping the industry move forward internationally.
Interesting that you are a sports fan. That will certainly help you in this industry. One of the things that you've touched on there is well-being. Mental health has been a big issue in this industry, has attracting staff in general to it and retaining them. But another one is, I think that I know, Alison, you got to grips with and tried to get people in a room together and talking about is the different pathways in terms of the educational qualifications. Do you want to give us an update on where things are, Alison, at the moment and where you see them going?
Yeah, I think the important thing is we've managed to get that level 3 standard off the ground. So Myerscough just launched it in this last month. So that's been it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? We've had huge numbers of applicants for it, in terms of apprentice, applicants, because people who completed the previous level 2. So that's fantastic. We've been pushing for that, lobbying for that, and working behind the scenes for 2 or 3 years to make that happen. So delighted that's now in place. You might have also seen we've got adverts to recruit new staff. Teaching staff are delivering it. From people from the sector. So we're excited that we'll be up and running in the next few weeks with that. So I think that's great thing to have now in place. The other thing, of course, that we've been running is the new level 5 apprenticeship standards as well for the greenkeeping. We've had our first cohorts go through, and our second one is in progress at the moment. And great to see that in place. So we've now got that level 2, 3, level 5, coming through. And of course, that allows that opportunity now all the way through, and people then can progress, of course, onto the existing degrees and master degrees that we already run here at Myerscough. So you have got that full suite now, which is fantastic.
And I know you've been quite good at making sure that you're talking to Bigger and GMA about developing those. Wes, I mean, have you had chats with them yet, or is that high on your agenda?
Yeah, no, Alison's absolutely. This is the first sort of formal conversation, Martin, with the industry.
Oh, is it? All right.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely. So, but from my point of view, Martin, in terms of the way I operate as principal and chief executive of a college, is very much being front and centre in that employer engagement. I know it's a role that Alison's absolutely pioneered. With the sports turf industry, which I'm really keen to engage with. So, as I say, a big part of my responsibility as principal chief executive of the college is to be accountable to the industry. So, it's our job collectively, it's my job as principal to make sure the product of the college is fit for purpose for your industry. And what I find is it's much better to do that if you can have those live, regular conversations, that you can actively listen. And of course, then that you can assure those employers that those conversations lead to actions, in terms of change and putting employees in the driving seat. But I would say, Martin, more and more so that needs to be a two-way relationship. And Alison's just mentioned, some challenges that colleges have got at the moment in terms of recruiting staff. Some of the work that I'm doing in my current role at the moment is very much engaging with employers and saying, okay, well, we'll adapt our curriculum, and what we want from you is a bit of skin in the game in terms of give us some time, give us some help in terms of what you really need, particularly around skills. But then also, can we tap into some of the fantastic expertise employed within the sector to deliver things like masterclasses within a college? Can we tap into some of the fantastic resources that's out there in the industry that the college may not have? But more and more so, it's that access to real work experience, and that could be through a variety of routes, whether that's the full-time route or whether that's an apprenticeship route, obviously as an employee. But I think post-pandemic, what we're finding is what we really need to do is to support our young people and adults into the real world of work. So again, using Lancashire as an example, employability skills are the key issue that's been identified through the local skills improvement plan, which has just been published or will just be published. So again, that's not something that a college can solve in isolation. That's something that a college and employers have to work together in. But I think that the other point, Martin, going back to a point that you made earlier, is where colleges and employers can also work really well together is careers advice and guidance in schools. For me, there's nothing more powerful than to go into a school with an employer, for the employer to describe the fantastic opportunities that they've got within their industry, but for then the college to really clearly spell out, and this is how you get there. So whatever your starting point, whether you're a 16-year-old that's making a decision for the future, whether you're an 18-year-old that's that's undertaking A-levels, whether you're a career changer as a 50-year-old, I think as to working together, what we can identify are those really clear career pathways to say this is a wonderful career and it's accessible to you.
That is music to my ears. Particularly because I hear from a number of groundsmen that have tried to do their own initiatives and greenkeepers, where they've tried to say, look, I've got a high profile Premier League club here. Can we come in and have a chat with you at your school? Because we want to promote our industry. And they really don't get anywhere. If they've got somebody who knows the buttons to push and knows the route in that's going to help them do that, then that is brilliant. And we'd be fully behind you. And if we can help support that, we certainly would, Wes.
Absolutely. And I think for me, Martin, it's about removing barriers, because, for young people, as I say, particularly, with the sort of the impact that we're still seeing through the COVID pandemic, is making sure that young people have got, and the parents have got, that confidence in terms of that career pathway, understanding the steps, understanding, those opportunities, having realistic expectations about their own responsibilities as part of that. Because as I say, as colleges, we want to produce work-ready students, and that's not just about handing out qualifications. As I say, skills are hugely important, but also behaviours. How do you work as part of a team? How do you work on your own? How do you problem solve? How do you challenge those? How do you work through those disorientating dilemmas that you're likely to face? As a new entrant into the industry. That can only be achieved by working absolutely hand in hand between colleges and those fantastic employers we've got around the country and beyond.
Brilliant, Alison. I think we'll leave the last word to you on this one. We really wish you a happy and fulfilling retirement. I'm sure you're not going to put your feet up and just watch the grass grow. Thank you again, and we hope that we will see you at some point in the future.
Yeah, it would be good to see Martin. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wes.
Pleasure, Martin. Good to meet you.